What's up, guys? Podcast number 3. Today we actually have Howie, and he's going to talk about some public land hunting and give you guys some tips. This is probably the number one question that I get asked is public land hunting in the mountains, and we're going to go over this. So, what's going on, guys?
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, we're glad to have somebody on this week. It's pretty funny. We third week in, we already got a guest. Howie,
Right.
why don't you start out and tell us where at in PA that you do that hunting at?
Okay, so I live in Southeast PA, but I hunt North Central, Tioga, Potter County area. Very vast, big woods, lots of game lands and hill country. So,
Okay, gotcha.
Awesome. Now, Howie, we've had some technical issues here, but
yeah.
just watching your Instagram stories tires me out because you put in some major work. I mean, I've seen you. I follow you all through the spring and summer and everything, and you got backpacks on with carrying rocks up and down the road. It's 100 degrees outside, and it wears me out. So why it inspires me really, but tell us how you start out your season by prepping, you're working out, you're shooting your bow, the trail cameras are scouting in the mountains, and let's just start with that, and we'll carry on from there.
So since I have like a 3.5 hour drive, I try to utilize as much time as possible. So in the spring, when I go up for trout, if I see deer, I mark that stuff in my mind. If I'm out turkey hunting, I'm still always deer hunting. I'm looking for deer sign, and I'm looking for things to come back in maybe in the fall. And as I go into these spots, I'm looking for oaks, different kinds of oaks. Mostly, like I look for like a white oak or some certain red oaks, and then that gives me an idea of I'll put that in the back of my mind, and then I could go in there in like September or late August, and you could go in there and see if they're dropping, if they have
Hmm.
eight. I haven't had luck with glass them. Guys say they can glass them. I don't have. I haven't picked up on that too good. I'll go out like after a storm, after you get some high winds, go out, hit some miles in, and you'll see, or you'll see maybe where a bear climbed the tree and they'll snap the limbs off, and they'll snap them limbs and they'll eat the acorns off them branches.
Hmm.
So you see that on the ground. And then that's another thing, you mark that in your mind. And then going into season, you kind of have an idea where you might want to start. But, you know,
Now, when you say you mark this in your mind, are you using any kind of apps to mark this?
so I am using Spartan Forge and I still have Onyx, and I go
Okay.
back between the two because I still have a lot of waypoints on the Onyx, and I'm kind of familiar with it. I'm still learning the Spartan Forge app. But like I'll mark stuff in my mind. I don't always use the app. And then sometimes if something really looks good, I will mark it and I'll make a waypoint and I'll
Okay.
make a
Now,
mental note.
how? I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you this year. How was your acorn crop? We had very, very little to none in my area where I'm at in Jefferson County.
So surprisingly, there was acorns in a few areas, but it was still bad. But I say surprisingly because we had the bad drought and then we had the gypsy moths on top of it. And I went out one day scouting, and I mean, like you just heard it sound like it was raining, and it was just leaves come down. And when you walked, the leaves were all shredded up in the ground. And when you looked up through the foliage, it was like wide open. And those gypsy moths were just hammering everything,
Hmm.
even like the underbrush. So it was like, this is like a desert. I need to get the heck out of here. And start writing their off. And come to find out that somehow some of them spots produced acorns, and there was actually deer in there. And I mean, I got burnt hard this year. I got my butt kicked bad. I haven't struggled this hard since I pretty much started, which was back around oh oh nine, 2009 is when I really that's when I really dived into hunting the mountain areas.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
What are
this was almost like I started over this year. I just could not. My timing was off. I mean, we had bad weather. I really, honestly, my setups and areas weren't really set up for south wind, and it was like every weekend it was south southwest, and then I would go in, and then it would be southeast or east. It was like swirling. It was just a struggle no matter
Mhm.
what. But back, kind of getting off topic, but like you were saying how I'm preparing and everything. So when I'm in them spots in the spring and I'm putting that in the back of my mind, that might be where I come back and then start setting trail cameras. And then I might move those cameras. Now, I made a mistake years ago of being too anxious to check those cameras like every week, every other week. You got to let them go for like at least 3-4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, because
Hmm.
what you're doing is you're putting too much pressure and presence in that area. And if you don't have a decent access and you're leaving a lot of scent, which, it's hard because a lot of times it's summer, you're sweating, bugs are bad. And you got to hike up a mountain to get there. So you're dumping sweat and you're leaving scent. And then you're altering the course of that area. I feel like, so what I'm always evolving and adapting, changing, every year food sources change, pressure from other hunters change, and you have to kind of figure all that out. And sometimes you just don't,
Now, are you
you
are
know,
you seeing anybody back in here where you go?
surprisingly, sometimes I do.
Hmm.
Now it's not a lot, but sometimes one or two guys might be, just depending on how they're doing it, might be enough to, really alter that movement in that spot.
Mhm.
What are some things that people, that's getting into this mounting hunting? What are some things that some guys can look for? Some tips to them
Um,
for success?
well, it's kind of I would say it's kind of hard to find a good hunting buddy
Hmm.
that's trustworthy, that doesn't, you need kind of have tight lips. You can't be sharing stuff because you got to put a lot of work in to find these spots.
Hmm.
And if you let the cat out of the bag, it's going to be ruined.
Yep.
But what I've like, we would park trucks at each end of the mountain and access from different areas. And if you would go in from one spot and then you walk to that other truck, you know what I mean? Like, so you drop a truck off, drive around, come in, and then walk it. And you have a buddy, you spread out maybe 20 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards, and walk that hillside out and go to that next truck. It might take a couple hours, it might take all day. And then you go back and compare notes. And now you kind of break that down. Then the next time you go out, you might move and then go from a different area. And basically, you're just kind of breaking that area down to learn the different kind of habitats. And then you find where those edges of those habitats meet. And then you'll find where you'll start to learn like how the deer are using that terrain
Hmm.
and areas they like. You'll go through something and you'll be like, man, this looks like it's awesome, but there's just no deer sign here.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, they're just not in there. And then you'll go into this other area and there'll be a couple little features in there. Like it might be some laurel and some hemlocks that just make something that they like, and you'll see sign. And then you'll start seeing that replicate itself from just putting your time in different areas. That once you start seeing something like that, you'll be like, oh, there's going to be deer here. Because every time I see something like this somewhere else, it always seems that the deer they like this kind of area for whatever reason.
So you're talking about entrance and exit and hunting buddy and things. Are you? Is this a spot and stock deal, or is this
No, this would be
depending on
like,
which season you're into?
um, so this could range from, say, maybe it's late rifle season and we just spread out. Maybe we're trying to bump something to each other, or maybe it's February, March, and we're trying to look for turkey scratchings and what turkey you're feeding, but we're still looking for, like, you're learning that mountain, that area as you're walking that, looking for turkey sign or whatever else. Hold on one second. Okay. So yeah, you're trying to, you're basically trying to do as much as you can with little as you have, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? If that makes any
Hmm.
sense at all.
Now, what I got back into public land hunting this year or for 2022, and I did a lot of scouting, did some hunting with Zach and stuff on some public land, and he got me into lone wolf custom gear, tree stands and
Yeah.
sticks and stuff
Yeah.
because they're pretty light and all that. What is your public land setup? Are you hunting hang on saddles or what's your setup?
So this would have been my third season with a saddle, but I
Hmm.
kind of go back and forth. I used to have a lone wolf climber, and that was awesome. But I found that there was some areas where the trees were too big
Mm-hmm.
to be here, and I could not get up that tree with that climber. So that's when I went into the saddle game. But to be honest, that kind of gets old after a little while, especially when it gets late and you're wearing like your bibs and stuff. You're trying to wear that saddle and you got all this clothes on. It's not always as comfortable for me. Now, some people, they love it. But I bought the Lone Wolf .5
Mm-hmm.
setup and I ran beast sticks, and that was pretty awesome. Now, this last year, I ran the .5 Lone Wolf Custom with the Lone Wolf Custom double 17-inch steps or
So
sticks. And
so
go ahead.
I just ordered that. I ordered the .5 and the sticks with three cable waders.
Okay. So I have 2 cable aiders, and on the bottom stick, I use a 3-step aider, which I modified it to make it movable.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of burned me at one time because I had a power cord with a carabiner on my belt. So if I dropped it on like the second stick, I wasn't stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I bumped it all the way up to the third stick because sometimes you have to cheat to win and get high.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to the third stick and I went to climb into my platform, and I forgot to unclip it. And when I stepped into the platform, it yanked that stick off the tree. So this is where actually a lot of guys like to use when you're saddle hunting around your tether, they like to use those rope man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you listen to the New York saddle hunter guys, they did a video why they don't like to use that, and they use the Prusik knot. And I always went with that since I watched their video.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation that actually saved my rear end because I was able to pull that knot down on that Prusik and descend down to set my. Now, it wasn't comfortable at all, but I was able to descend down enough to reset that stick, get back up in the stand. Now, it was kind of a stretch, but at least I was tied in and I was able to get now, if I would have had the ascender and you're trying to pull that little cable and those jaws open, you're going to go down because all your weight is now pulling on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that was like eye-opening. Like, okay, now I seen it full circle why they do that. The other thing is, like, with those mobile setups, you have to silence
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I'm not quite there yet. I got a lot of work. I'm going to order a lot of stealth strips this off season, and I got to silence those sticks. Are awesome. They're compact and the way they stack, but if you're not careful, they're kind of like they could be like a tuning fork.
Right.
But I mean, I love that setup, the way everything works together. It's truly awesome.
Now, I do a lot of the buck hunting that I do is on the side of a mountain also, and that's why Dave and I was talking about having you on here because you and I have something in common.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
I do a lot of real steep hillside. Like I go in, I can enter the property from a friend's house, and it's a big triangular narrow piece of property, 100 acres on top, and the sides is all state. And what it is it's a bend in the river, and there's flat on top, but all sides go down to the river, so it's steep. Every angle steep. And I was kidding Dave. I said, if you're going to hunt with me, you got to have ankles and calves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because you got it. I mean, it's deep descents, and you're rolling rocks with your ankles and stuff. You got to watch, really, you do. But what I'm getting at is, anyhow, I run the hawk sticks, and I made some aiders to just help. The last two sticks that I have, the low ones, the first two I put up have aiders on them, and then I can get like 25 feet with those 4 sticks.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what you can do with this stuff nowadays.
yeah, I mean it's nice to be able to go in and do that and move around if I have to. I am not a saddle guy.
Right?
Over 50, I just don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't climb trees anymore. I do everything with sticks or ladder stands or hang-ons.
You're too old.
I'm
Well,
too
the
old.
reason I kind of went in the saddle is I never wore a harness, and I thought, well, this would be safer for me because at least now I'm always tied in.
Right.
And even if I wear the I'm sorry, even if I'm hunting out of the .5, I still wear my saddle, and then I will just use my tether and still tie off to the tree, so I'm tied in. I
I'm
bought hunter safety system vest, and I just never liked it, and with that cable in the back, and I'm like, well, I never even wore it, so I'm like, now I have something to tie in because I'm getting older now too, and I'm like, I think about this stuff a lot more, and I'm like, you know,
yeah.
How old
doing.
are you now, Howie?
I just turned 37.
Okay.
So that's another thing I'm kind of learning of accepting my age because I feel like the mountains kind of slow you down after a while.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm 51 and I'll be 52 this year when archery season rolls around. And 2 years ago, I climbed a tree with a climber, and I about got stuck up there because I hadn't used it in a long time. And I got up the tree and found out that my body does not like to bend like it used to. It was one of those stands that had the rubber bands across, and you had to tuck your toes underneath it, and and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
let yourself up and down with it. Well, I got up, when the hunt was done. It got dark, and I tried to get my boots underneath those straps, and I couldn't turn around and bend and help myself to get those boots tucked under that rubber strap. I
yeah.
about got stuck up the tree, and that's when I come home and I told the wife, I said, I'm done climbing trees. No more climbers. Too old. Can't bend like that.
Right.
So, but yeah, I find myself though, Howie. I don't know how you feel. I try to find like saddles and like you were saying, transition zones.
Yep.
Uh, I like ridge tops during the rut, but during the season, I think it's the saddles is where it's at. Because all it seems like the does are traveling that, and the bucks are following them around. But rut time, anything could happen. But I like using the ridges. What do you
Uh,
think?
I kind of like to be down a bench or two. It all de- so it kind of all depends on where that saddle is in accordance to how people are accessing and like where your like parking lots and stuff are because I used to hunt a lot of saddles, but then you would find a tree stand like right in there, and then you would be like, "This looks like it'd be dynamite." And then you go another 100 yards, and it's like, "Oh well, no wonder this guy's hunting in here." And maybe it would be better. I don't know. I can't talk for everybody, but maybe they're not accessing it correctly,
Hmm.
or maybe they are, but just however they're doing it kind of changes the patterns. And I've seen some deer movement in there, but it seems like those older bucks just kind of avoid those saddles.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's because of everybody keys in on that. Like we got all these podcasts now, which is awesome, but I'm starting to listen to podcasts and then what everybody's doing or talking about, I do the opposite. Or I
Hmm.
start looking and like the big thing now is clear cuts. So now you go to a clear cut. Well, guess what? You got a lot of company on clear cuts because every podcast is talking about targeting clear cuts.
Right.
So those deer are always adapt. They live out there, and it just amazing. It's like, okay, we just got to find somewhere else, and you have to kind of always be one step ahead of the next guy.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm lucky in the sense that where I'm at, it's desolate enough that I don't usually get company.
okay,
So I actually scout all summer long, put cameras out, mock scrapes out, do a little intel, and then strategically put stands all around that river bend where I want to be. And I actually leave them out and lock them. But I have the sticks, so I just take the sticks down and I leave the stand. And very rarely do I ever
okay,
see anybody. Usually if I see somebody, it's like during bear season because of course there's people pushing around,
yeah.
you know. But
And most of my impression is rifle season. That's when I'll see a lot of people in a lot of these spots, like on cameras and stuff.
mhm. Well, the
I,
reason I pick where I go is because I don't like to see people.
Right.
So I go where I know no one else is gonna go, and like that buck there and that bear there was all shot on that property, and with multiple others, and
You killed his brother.
yeah, I did. I got his heir. It was either his son or grandson. You
That
know.
that can be tough too for me at some points because I've done that. I went way back in. I'm like, I ain't gonna see anybody back here, and I didn't. But I was so far away from people. Like now, this is say like a rifle hunt strategy where you think game is gonna get pushed back to you eventually, and I was just too far away from everybody that nothing even came to me. There was enough, I guess, cover and pockets that they just pushed the next
Hmm.
set of cover, but I didn't see anything, and I'm
Oh,
like, well, I do that again. It the thing of it is with like the public, it's tough because it's so situational. And like when I'm setting cameras in the summer, I've played the game where you set the cameras and you're getting these giant bucks on, and then oh I can't wait. Well, then they shift. That shift
always.
of it, they go nocturnal, and then you don't get them again, and then now you got to start all over. Um,
Mhm.
I I kind of like to my strategy now. I like to cast a net of cameras in areas that I think are good, where a good buck would be, and I kind of let them soak. And it's kind of crappy because sometimes, like if you're dumb, you forget to turn it on, or you do something and there's a twig in the way, or sometimes like if you do it too early in the summer, and a little sapling will actually grow a couple inches, and it grows in front of that camera, and then it starts blowing the
You get a
wind, and you
thousand
got 1,000
pictures.
pictures. It's like, and then you go there, it's dead right at prime time.
Yep.
So you kind of need to find out a way to get, and some of these spots are so far back in, like I just like I whatever reason I just can't get to them.
Hmm.
But you'll
How many?
have um but my strategy is I try to get these cameras out in areas I think there's going to be a good buck, and I just try to let them soak. That way I'm not altering the deer. You're kind of seeing the deer on their more natural pattern, I should say. I'm trying to put them in areas where I think they're going to be when I'm going to be hunting them. Um, and then I I really put a lot more effort into like in season scouting. Like this year, um, I'm not just going to go sit in a tree because I like off of a trail cam picture I got from like a month ago.
Right.
Like that's not enough information for me to go sit here. So I might spend all day walking, and I'm on a scout so I find hot sign or what I think looks good for that time. Like this year, there wasn't much acorns, but if I would have found a couple or where the ground was tore up, okay, I might set. I'm going to set here because I don't need to go any further. So I made that mistake last year, whereas um, I seen where they were feeding, but I walked past that sign, didn't realize that that was the hot sign because I was looking for. I was like, I got to find better, And sometimes you got to realize this is what's good right now, and then set up on that.
How
Right.
many cameras are you roughly running?
Um, honestly,
And is it all in the same spot, or are you scattered throughout multiple different public lands?
so I think I'm a little over 30. I
Okay.
don't honestly, it's under 35, but I know I'm over 30. Um, I do have a couple cell cams mixed in there just because there's some spots
I
that
was just
are so
I
far
was just
back
gonna ask
in,
you if you was
and I
running
mean,
cell cams, but I know you're at camp a lot, so you just go check them. A lot of them though by hand.
there's a lot of stuff going on with them now, and I'm like, well, I, I'm I'm 3.5 hours away, so if I see a picture on there till I get up there, I'm basically 24 hours away from that deer anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I have them. I have most of them this year. I kind of had them on one area, one like mountain area, that like a hub system where all these ridges are dumping down together. I have them kind of all around that. Um, and then I have a couple. I'll try to leave like a couple. eh, what I call them floater cams, where I'll try to leave like 5 or 6 at the house. I'll put one in my bag every time I go out. So if I see something going in, something lights up, gets hot, maybe I'll put a camera camera on it, and then I could come back and check that in a week or so, or maybe I'll just, if I don't, I could just come back and get that intel at the end of the year, at the end of the season, and then if I use that one, I'll grab another one, put it in my bag. I always try to keep one in my bag now, because there's so many times going into a spot and like scrapes will just light up. It's like, well, I should have a camera here, just to see kind of what your base. For me, you're trying to see what is in that area and how they're using it, and then you could kind of like look at the time frame, and then you're like reverse engineering back to where you think they're coming from. But it's tough. I mean, they don't bed in one single bed all the time, I don't think. Sometimes high, sometimes low.
No. Me and Dave talk about that all the time. It's like, when a deer gets tired, it lays down.
Right.
When it gets tired of laying down, it stands up, goes to the bathroom, takes a couple bites or whatever, and these guys making buck beds and stuff, I kind of disagree with it. I don't know what you guys think, but like people are trying to make buck beds. I mean, you can make bedding areas and things. I understand it, but to literally like make a buck bed behind this log, I don't really believe in that. I'm sorry.
Well, it's more of,
I mean,
I've seen people do some crazy stuff, cut, like you just said, cut logs, and then they take a rake and they rake out the leaves right there, and they try to.
Yep.
I actually seen a guy take a log, put it right on the ground, rake out the area in front of it, take a tree, like a sapling, 2-inch round sapling, and bend it down and tie it with a rope to an anchor to the ground so he can bed there when he's got a tree right over top of him. And it's just it's over the top.
That's way too much thinking.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's over the top.
All the bedding everywhere else, and then maybe that is the only spot to bed. If you have that much control over the terrain, maybe. But
yeah, that's
like up there this year, it got so dry, and with the gypsy moths, even like the underbrush dried up. That cover changed, and I think it shifted their bedding, because normally I want to say like 5 real good shooters, and maybe I set my standards too high this year, but I'm like, I want to try and kill something in the 130s. Now, I had one that was over 130 and one pushing maybe 130. So I only had 2 shooters that I was basically after. But another thing that I try to do is through these cameras, I try to find where I have the most buck activity, and then I kind of key in that area, and I'll bounce around. Like, so I might narrow it down to say 20 acres, right? And then I have 6, 120, because I used to be like in the 120s, 125, that's a shooter to me. If I could get 5, 6 in an area like that, I'm going to hunt somewhere around there, and eventually I'll just catch up to one of them. But this year, I only had 2, and none of them were in the same. They were like really spread out. So I just kept pounding away at where I knew that these bucks were, and it didn't work out for me,
Right. I mean, I had some whoppers on camera, but I never caught up with them. I never saw them again, so it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does,
It's hunting, and
yeah. Well, this year I changed up tactics totally because of the acorn situation. I was going out and getting blanked, wasn't seeing anything, and I was driving home and seeing these big bucks in everybody's yard eating grass.
Well, it was full and hot, right? I took off that first week in November, and I should have looked at that forecast and just went right back to work because I was limited on time.
It was hot,
and it was so warm. I mean, even at night, it was t-shirt. And I sat there for 3 or 4 days, and I didn't see a deer. The first, I forget the date. It was right around, I want to say, the 2nd or 3rd of November. I took off Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and that I figured that first Thursday was going to be the coldest morning. I figured, well, it's kind of that time frame they should be cruising. I should have a good chance. Well,
right.
I got set up, and I had to cross this big creek to get in here. So it was it's a tough access. I thought if I got up along that riverbank and let the wind blow my scent over that river, I'm I'm bulletproof. Well, I don't know if it was because of how it was overly warm and the thermals coming off that water, but at night, the thermals should have been coming down the mountain, but they were going up the mountain, and the wind was supposed to be coming out of the southwest, coming off that mountain, but the thermals or the wind was going completely opposite, and I was on this pinch point. So I had this giant. It was too dark to shoot. I could just barely see the rack, and he got the 12 yards right in front of me, and he whipped out of there and turned and ran. I thought, well, there's no way he's seen me, because I was just kind of reaching for my binoculars to pull him out and look. And I thought, did he see me? Well, then he started blowing. I thought, oh, crap. Well, then after he got out of there, I threw the milkweed and it went right to where he was at. I'm like, that's completely opposite of what the weather forecasted the wind to be.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's
And
talk about scent control on the mountain. Are you using sprays? You smoking your clothes? Are you making mock scrapes trying to use deer lure? I mean, what are you doing for scent?
I mean, I kind of try a little bit of it all, but I don't get all wrapped up in it, because if I'm up there for the week hunting the mountains, hiking and stuff, I'll be honest, in a couple days I start to stink, and my clothes start to stink because I'm sweating. I mean, I'll try and hang them outside and air out. I don't really get involved with spraying down too much. I try to let stuff out in the air, or I try not. This might sound crazy or dumb, but I try not to eat onions, and I try not to eat like garlic during
Mm-hmm.
all of our season, because I know that I feel like that comes out of your pores.
It does for sure.
Yeah.
I try to watch certain things like that I'm eating, because I feel like it just makes your body odor kind of,
It does.
you know. I'll do a little bit of smoking on the clothes, a little like oak leaves or oak bark, just what I have or whatever I have available. But
I read one time if you take vitamin B1, it helps with the odors coming out of you.
okay,
I bought a bottle of it and tried it. I
chlorophyll.
didn't see any big difference.
I just heard of using chlorophyll.
Yeah.
I'll take chlorophyll. Yeah, chlorophyll towels, because they actually used that back in the Civil War for infections, because it would stink. And if they would, I guess they would break the capsule open and put it on the infection, or make them take it orally, that they could drink it or take it like a vitamin or whatever, and it would help that infection not to stink so bad. So it's like, well, if it can do that, and you kind of burp and you smell like a plant,
Yeah.
I a little bit. Now I don't know. I mean, it's hard to fool a deer's nose, and the wind is always like swirling or switching. It's like this
Right.
year, first I've had in years though. Like as far as trying to get a consistent wind, it just seemed like it swirled every single time I was out. It was brutal. So I mean, I don't know. I try to play the wind. I try and do certain things, but sometimes the deer just win.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Howie, we want to thank you for coming on here and explaining all this, and make sure you keep your Instagram stories going, because, like I said, it definitely motivates me seeing you hiking these mountains and
Yeah, you're a grinder, dude. I
yeah,
tell Dave that all the time. I'm like, Howie's out there grinding again, man. He's out there.
yep,
Hey, you guys follow along. It means a lot. Thanks for having me on. And keep doing what you're doing. You pump me up to do stuff too, because I'm going to be getting back into the habitat stuff in the property. Oh, I would say coming up here in the next couple months in spring.
hmm
So
Yeah,
it's never ending. It never ends.
yeah, it's getting to be that time. It'll be frost seeding before you know it.
yeah,
Yeah, like Rambo said, nothing's over.
that's right, that's
It's
right,
all year, man. It's all
yep,
year. It never quits.
yep.
All right, guys.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Take it easy. Thanks for having me on.
We'll see you, Howie.